It's recording. Were we not recording the whole time?
Seems like every road you're on is hit a dead end. There is hope. Let me show.
What's up?
Why are you dancing?
I'm waiting for this to start.
Here we are. We're starting.
Are we?
Yeah.
You sure?
Are you sure?
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Are you
I don't
sure?
know. I don't know about that. I don't know. But whatever it be. Anyway.
Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
You okay? What are you doing?
I'm just messing with audio. Making sure it's going. So. I'm here.
Hello.
You're here. We're all here.
Yeah, we're all here. All
It's going great.
two of us.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been?
That is correct. I've been fine. How have you been?
I've been fine. Nothing crazy or major has been happening recently to say otherwise, so
You sure?
stop that.
What?
Stop that.
Stop what? Asking questions?
Asking if I'm sure.
Well, sometimes you forget.
That I'm sure?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Uh-huh. It's true.
Nuh-uh.
We have a long repeating history, even in this podcast, where I'm like, and then this happened, and you're like, I don't know. I don't think so. And then, boom. You're like, oh, yeah, that did happen. So sometimes you don't remember. So that's why it's always nice to do
Well,
a
it's
double check, because sometimes you forget.
When it's memory related. Asking if I'm sure on something. No. Not related to that.
Yeah, if you're doing okay, for sure. Sometimes you block it out.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
That's not what this podcast is going to be about today, though. This episode is not going to be about if I'm sure.
Kinda.
No?
Kinda.
No?
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
If anyone ever wondered what Zach is like as a brother, this is prime example of our relationship right here, of this back and forth. It's wonderful.
Seems great as far as I'm concerned. So.
Well, Zach, what's
No
our
problems.
episode going to be about today?
Memories.
About triggers in today's day in life.
And what do triggers trigger? Memories from the past. Because you can't be triggered about something that hasn't happened.
Well, that's part of the material that's inspired me for today's episode. Is I've been triggered in areas of what I haven't received, and I'll dive into that. So I debunked your theory. Haha.
No, not really.
A little bit.
How?
Anyway, yes. So we're gonna be talking about memories and triggers and all that jazz, and let's just jump right in. You ready?
Yeah, Ellie's trying to not yawn right now, so she's making
I'm trying
facial
not to. It
expressions.
didn't work. Shush.
That's gonna go on an Instagram reel.
No, it won't. You won't see my face because you were talking, and then the Zoom video went to you instead. No one's gonna see it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Yes, they will. They'll see Ellie in all of her glory. Triggers and all.
Not memory problems and all too at that point.
I'll help, don't worry.
Yeah, you tend to help in that area.
Well, yeah, sometimes. That's the funny thing about memory.
What?
Well, okay. You might have to denoise my audio. Sorry, just because I'm seeing the levels go like that. And it's because my computer is like hot in the background. So anyway, I have a denoiser on it, but you'll probably have to try to.
Yeah, I do that anyways. I know what to do.
I know, but it's like
I got
extra
you.
loud right now. Just giving you a warning. No, I mean, memory is only as good as what you remember. So it gets really complicated when you first tell someone about something and then days, months, years later, you remember it differently.
Yeah.
And so, like, I can go back and be like, oh, yeah, I remember you talked about that. It made you really mad. And maybe back then you were mad, but now you remember it differently. You go, well, no, I wasn't mad. It's like, well, that's what you said. So I can only assume that it made you mad.
Right.
No. And so, I mean, that's the situation with memory. I mean, it creates a stamp at a certain point in time. And so I can remember a lot of stuff that you've said, but in terms of details or recollection or how you perceive it now can conflict with how it was portrayed a long time ago, you know?
Which is really scary because then it begins to create inconsistencies in what I experienced versus what you experienced. And no, I didn't act like that, or however I would defend myself. So it does tend to get, it could end up getting in a scary territory of, if I were a severely dysfunctional, unhealthy person, I would say, well, you're wrong, and then it would definitely afflict our relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful that for a majority, I trust you enough that if you're saying, no, this is what happened, that you would tell me the truth and you wouldn't steer me wrong. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't get aggressive or get so defensive with you or anything. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's how I can remember a lot of things that you've told me, but that's always the hard part is that I didn't experience things you did.
Sure.
And if details start to blur or if emotions get in the way of it, I can only go off of what was said. And later on, if you realized, oh no, that's not exactly what happened, I was just emotional, or I was upset, or I was blurring two memories together, and then you try to bring that up the next time, it can get confusing because it's like, well,
Yes.
that's not what you said, or that's not the
Right.
impression you gave me when, whatever. So I can remember a lot, but at the end of the day, it didn't happen to me. It happened to you. So it's just kind of, it's one of the reasons I always say get really grounded in reality,
Yep.
because reality hopefully is what you can recall, and it makes things that are uncertain certain. So
Right.
you know
Well, that kind of segues into what inspired why I said I wanted to talk about triggers today.
because Ellie
Excuse
bought
me.
a gun.
No.
You can buy a gun, it's fine.
I want to buy one to protect myself in the house that I'm in, but we're paying off debt
Mosquitoes.
right now. Yes. Exactly. No. There's been a very catalyst event series timeline with work where I've realized, taken a step back mentally and emotionally from what's going on with work, that's made me realize, oh, there's some areas in what I'm trying to deal with at work that's really challenging me to grow in certain areas that there was a moment where I took it too negatively and almost reverted back to myself wanting to run away from scenarios. I just never wanted to deal with conflict many moons ago, and so I kind of spiraled and realized I was operating in a younger version of myself of just utter chaos with what's it called? Feeling like the rug's pulled from under me, feeling like everything is against me, feeling like the only solution is to run away. And it honestly was just my innermost being tackling with the challenges at hand are actually intended for me to grow, not to hurt me. But because I am still learning how to disconnect from the old version of myself, I realize that, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm yawning. I'm sorry. With all of that, it's just, I wanted to discuss how, even though being 3-ish years post, oh yeah, it would be 3 years post moving back, that there's still minute moments of realizing what area of myself is still unhealthy and dysfunctional, and what areas am I still operating in older versions of myself. But then I also wanted to open the conversation for Zach, where have you noticed anywhere in your life today where, oh yeah, I didn't receive this, or something along those lines in that gray area. So I could talk more about me, but wanted to ask Zach first before I dive right in.
About areas in my life that I didn't get needs met specifically, or
Well, just do you have you noticed anywhere in your life today where you're operating and recognizing, oh, didn't receive this when I was younger, or I'm operating in an older version of myself, or anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, I think yeah, but I think that's because you and I tackle things differently.
Yeah.
Um so I don't think of it as like I guess the best way I can probably describe it is I think for me, where the way that you and I got healing was a little bit different, and um the acknowledgement of what was done was different, and that it made our paths in terms of healing afterwards different. So like I guess the way I can put it into a metaphor is kind of like we both needed surgery, and when I went to the doctor, they opened me up right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And put me under, got it out, and then told me what I needed to do in order to make sure that that didn't happen again. I think yours was a little bit more, you came into the hospital, didn't know what was wrong, had to cut you open, go, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Oh, here we go. And not that it was right or wrong, but I think for me, when I got my healing, it was just the tools and the methodology, I think, was just different. Like I went after my healing going, already you are working in a deficit. You will always have these wounds. You will always have these things. There's no guarantee that it's just going to go away because you invited Jesus into it and because you've acknowledged it. It may not be as strong of a hindrance, but you may always struggle with this. So like for me, it wasn't like here's a pill and all your problems are going away, or because you know, and I'm not saying that's how yours was or anything like that, but I think for me, when it came to healing and it came to the acknowledgement of the abuse that I had, it wasn't this little short scuba dive into the depths. It was, we're already in the deep end, and I had to acknowledge everything, and I had to accept things for what they were and deal with it then, you know. It wasn't like a slow burn of, oh, now something new came up, oh, now something new came up, oh, you know, after 6 months of doing this, I realized that, you know, this is now an issue. You know, it all kind of just happened at the same time. So I think for me, it wasn't like my journey with it wasn't this slow burn. And always kind of going like, okay, back to the drawing board. What's wrong with me today? What's wrong with me today? I'm not saying that there weren't times where, like the majority of the time, it was all, here's all the stuff. What do we want to tackle? It was all kind of like laid out. I'm not saying that there weren't a few things where I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't recognize that this is a remnant of my abuse. But I think for the most part, with how my healing journey was, and I didn't go the traditional counseling route where you're talking to a therapist for an hour and you can only go so deep with the time that you have. Mine was just a little bit different. So I think for me, there's probably some stuff, but I don't, in terms of triggers, I maybe a few years ago, like maybe 4-ish years ago, I recognized some remnant stuff, but that was just because of relationships that I was having with different people. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because I was necessarily avoiding anything. Well, I guess that's not true. I was avoiding the truth in order to make relationships work. But I don't think I really get triggered. I think what I have is just more kind of like in our video with Alice Mills. You're going to see another dragon.
Yeah.
You know, you had your own dragon to fight and defeat. There are other dragons out there, and you will come in contact with them, and they're going to be in the church, and they're going to be in the workplace, and if you're lucky, sarcastically, you know, they're going to be in leadership over you. So I wouldn't say I get triggered. I think I just see more dragons, so I just see more unhealthy people who remind me of the abuse that I had, but I think that's just kind of more normal.
Well, and when you notice that, how have you navigated in recognizing that unhealthiness? How do you maintain in the present without being pulled back into the past?
I think for me, I have to remember that I already defeated the dragon. I mean, it wasn't me. It was God, you know, but like, I don't know. I guess, like, I mean, I guess I can give an example. I had a really toxic boss not long ago, and this boss was very narcissistic. And I don't mean that in a buzzword kind of thing. She was a narcissist, and narcissism comes out differently in women than it does in men. Um, but she was a tyrant, and I had to remember, like, look, if I can say no to my father, I can say no to you. And if the worst thing that happens to me is that I get fired for saying no, you can't treat me that way, that's abusive, then that's the worst thing that's going to happen, as I get fired. I'm not going to lose a limb. I'm not going to be homeless for the rest of my life. If the worst thing that happens to me is I make a narcissist mad for standing up for myself, then all things considered, it's really not that big of an issue. Like, it's an issue, but it's not the end of the world. It's not, I have to be silent because I need to get a paycheck. For me, it just when you kind of deal, I think, with people, I think for me, you kind of I've had to realize, what do I value?
Yeah.
Do I value the lie of safety? Meaning, if I shut up and hide my head and pretend that I'm not a threat, is that worth it? Because if I'm doing that with you really just have to be okay with the fact that you're gonna get persecuted no matter what.
Yeah.
And are you willing to live in the truth? And what I mean by that is, like, there is no way that you as a person can endure 8 hours a day of abuse and then go home and be a perfectly happy, normal person.
Right. No.
You just can't. You can pretend for a while, and you can think that you are able to separate that out, but you really cannot do that. And you have to realize, like, look, the longer that I'm here, the longer that I'm enduring this, it's going to affect me in all of my relationships. It's going to affect my outlook on life, God, etc. Yeah. And so you really have to value yourself, or value the abusive person, or the trigger, and which one is going to sit on that throne and which one is not. And so I wouldn't say I was good at that, but I think, you learn in life what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to. And everyone is going to have a different threshold for what they're willing to accept and what they're not willing to accept. I know great people who are totally okay, quote unquote, okay with letting abusive leaders and people in the workforce tyrannize them and be horrible, and in a way get away with it. And I have to remind them, well, I tell them, you unless you signed a blood oath, no one is going to hold, like, there's no reason why you're holding yourself beholden to someone like that. It's your choice to stay. Just like in an abusive relationship, it's your choice to stay. If you want to stay, then this is what you're signing up for. But if you want to leave, you can leave. And that's a very interesting topic of workplace abuse and why we tolerate that, but we won't tolerate relationship abuse. That's a really interesting paradigm. But
I think that's interesting too.
Oh, we will put up with toxic leadership all day long as Christians.
Yep.
We will sit there and go, I am where I'm supposed to be, and if God wanted me to not be in this job, he would take me away and give me a new job. So I'm supposed to learn something from this. And it's like, yeah, maybe. But also, unless God has told you specifically that,
Right.
You don't have to be in Egypt if God's not telling you to be in Egypt. So uh, I think for me, it's just remembering God's voice, and it's remembering who you are in Christ, and not everyone is going to see you as a person. Not everyone's going to see you as valuable. So um, instead of trying to earn their respect or earn their trust or earn their loyalty or earn their love, um, you have no guarantee of that. If they can't see you that way, no amount of action that you do is going to make anybody see you differently. So, or at least people like that, you know? So, I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's just, you have to remember the basics. And the basics to me are that you don't have to tolerate abuse. If you want to, you can. But just because someone is mistreating you doesn't mean that you deserve it. And it doesn't mean that they're right. And it doesn't mean that the answer is you trying to figure out a way to solve their
Right.
problem.
Well,
You know?
if I can speak into where I'm coming from as to why I'm even asking how do you stay present and all that is because all the logistic and pieces, but I'm going to try to broaden what's been happening with me at work. I have recently realized that I'm in a healthy work environment, and how my supervisors have been going about figuring out next steps for me and everything. I wanted to go in a very specific direction. However, they've been trying to describe to me, it's altering, it's changing. There's some things that we recognize that we want to focus on before we can even get you to the next step. But for some reason, I'm thinking that they're, mind you, this is a course of a couple of months or so of conversations. I'm thinking that they are trying to push me out of the workplace. They're trying to not have me get to the actual role that was what we agreed on and what was approached for me to accept this role. I'm thinking that that they're actually not wanting me to be successful. They want me to be actually set up for failure and all these things. And what I'm realizing as a big picture is I don't know what a healthy dynamic with a male leader is like. Because both of my leaders are both fathers, and they're really endearing. They're such beautiful souls to their wives, to their children. But there's some self-talk that I've been listening to that isn't the truth. And that's been the cornerstone of me, just to take it and run with it. And I'm realizing that I should have spoken up and should have asked for clarity and things, for things of the matter like thinking and feeling that I'm being set up for failure. I could figure that on my own, because I would need to take a step back from just having the mind's eye of looking into the scenario and saying, that's actually not the truth. And here's actually what the truth is. And it's such a whirlwind, because then we finally had a meeting where I'm really seeing, after an alignment with just spending time with the Lord, that really what's happening is that my character, not necessarily my character, but there's opportunities in my person that can be improved, and how I show up mentally and emotionally to step up or level up out from operating in dysfunction and unkindness, so to speak, because our culture is so kind and wants to encourage and coach and encouragement. I've accidentally tend to go to the negative of only correcting, instead of there's actual things to actually encourage and great jobs and you're doing great. But because my alignment has been wrong and I've been listening to the wrong voice in my head of, not necessarily wrong voice, but the loud voice in my head of thinking negatively, I've been producing negative comments, if that makes sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And for context, listeners, I know to a degree of her work situation. So, um, if you're lost, it's okay. But no, I mean, I get that. I think,
I should say, I realize I get so consumed by things and
he,
I have a
yeah,
harder time to disconnect, and I'm actively learning how to do the disconnect.
yeah, I think, no, I think that makes sense. And I think in your situation, I mean, I won't speak for it because it's your situation. And again, I can only go off of what you tell me in snippets, you know,
Right.
what you tell me in a 30-minute period after you've experienced an 8-hour period. You
Yeah.
have more time quantity to think things through and remember stuff. I only get the snippet, like the little window that,
Right.
so I can only go off of what I've been told and my awareness of that. Only you kind of know the fuller picture and nuance of
Right.
everything. Um, I think, one of the things, I mean, I've kind of been there myself. Um, in terms of, I don't know, like that is such a hard topic and concept to just condense
Sure.
into a few short words. But I mean, I think in your position, I hear what you're saying, and I think, yeah, of course, there are always going to be opportunities where we can do things better, where people can point out blind spots and whatnot. My thing that I've had to learn the hard way in that is that it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we as people think that, I think it kind of goes back to an abusive reaction where it's like, if you tell me what I need to do, then everything will be okay. Because obviously you wouldn't be going about the way that you're treating me if I only would have asked this, or if I only would have said this, or if I only would have gone about it the correct way that you're giving me feedback on. I think a lot of times we can get roped into situations where the conception is, I will get favor, I will get love, I will get positive affirmation if I only do the right thing. Or if I'm the only one that's making these changes, I must be the only one that's wrong. Everyone else, like you kind of, like in a weird way, like your mind kind of goes like, yeah, things would be better if you just did what you were told, and and sure, there are times where it's like, yeah, there's constructive feedback on how you can do things better, for sure. That's in every job and that's in every relationship, because we can only show up to the level that we're at, but vice versa, people can only show up to the level that they're at.
Yeah.
And if we know anything about Christian culture, is that we do a really good job at pretending.
Yep.
So, unless you're at these people's houses and you're witnessing firsthand who they are behind the curtain when everyone else is gone, like, you really don't know people to the extent that you think you do. You can only go off of how people show up as,
Right.
And I'm not saying that in your situation that's the case. I'm just saying that, you have to I've had to learn that you have to get really discerning in what's choosing to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can say the right things, they can come off the right way, they can have the right tone, but when you start to realize that it's an imbalanced paradigm,
Yeah.
that's the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's where you kind of have to go, okay, I hear what you're saying. However, if we want to talk healthy, or if we want to talk about teamwork or collaboration, why am I the only one that has a laundry list? And why are you perfectly fine? Why? How come there's no feedback for you? How come there's nothing that you're saying like, hey, I'm going to do this better, or next time we're going to go about it this way? You know, when it becomes a laundry list of things that you have to do better, you're in an imbalanced relationship, because because it's like one of the biggest ways that you can convince someone of the truth is you give them a little bit, or sorry, convince someone of a lie is that you give them a little bit of truth.
Yeah.
Because our brain will go, well, of course there's things I need to work on. Right? Because I'm not a perfect person. So of course there are things that I need to work on, which is true. But when that gets packaged in a, hey, you know what, you'll get that promotion if you do X, Y, and Z. And I really want to see this new thing that we talked about going forward. Things, that's where you have to just be really discerning. Sometimes that is good, positive feedback, but sometimes it's not. And
right.
You have to really be rooted in reality and really kind of go, okay, are the people around me operating in good fruit?
Yeah.
Or are they not? And if they're not, then
that's insight.
Then you really have to figure out where you stand, and then have to figure out how you're going to handle it. Because that's the thing, you can live in a lie, and you can make a really pretty campground in that territory. But now that you know the truth, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's where people don't really want to go there, or people don't really want to handle that, or they don't really want to face the truth, because
right.
they like what they've built and they like the lie and it's comfortable and it's hard. And then you have recovering people pleasers who just want everyone to be happy, and we take responsibility for other people's happiness or their emotions, and it's like, no, that's your job, not mine. So
yeah.
We have a minute and 30-ish seconds before our Zoom conference is ending, so I think this will kind of give us a nice little break, and we'll come back to you guys once we get a new Zoom session going.
Yeah. I have some things to comment to what you're saying, so why don't we go to the next one, and we'll hit the ground running on that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody, we're in the Zoom call. We're in the Zoom call. Look, there's Ellie and her teddy bear sitting behind her. Oh yeah, look it. There we go. Ellie's teddy bears. I thought you said you put them in storage.
I don't have storage anymore.
What happened to your storage?
I got rid of it because I didn't want to pay the storage fee. So.
Oh. So where is everything?
So now, in my room, or in bins in the garage, or
bins in the garage, you say?
Getting ready for a yard sale. No, so we're back. So let me go ahead and mention that I'm noticing, I feel like I'm on a fence of, I have a tendency, it's not always the tendency, but I have a tendency to filter things in self-doubt and insecurities and these weaknesses that I know is from a byproduct of the trauma that we've shared already. But I have an opportunity in my workplace where I could see it, acknowledge it, but decide to turn away from it and operate in truth instead. It's really hard because my flesh wants to go in the direction of what's easier. It's easier to go in the negative because that's self-serving in that truth. But I will say, I don't believe my supervisors have an ill will towards me of where they see my potential going. They also believe in the Lord. Our stance, I believe our business's stance is extremely faith-based. There's a lot of byproducts of how we're supposed to have our culture that is very in alignment with, if you're in alignment with the Lord, these are the byproducts and this is the fruit that you will have. And I see you thinking, hold on one second, that if I continue being centered with the Lord and having that spiritual alignment with him, the rest of my job, not saying that my job is God, but the rest of my role at my job with alignment with the Lord is actually going to be easier because I'm not fighting with my trauma self and my insecurity self and my easily offended self. Some days are easier than others, but one of the things that really broke that truth into me was realizing that both of my supervisors had sat me down and said, we hear you. One person said, I have a snippet of everything that's going on and what you've said to this other supervisor, but I really want to just clear the air here and want to give this opportunity of extreme clarity, because I want to operate in clarity, not just misunderstandings and things left in the air. And in doing that, they spelled out and said, I'm sorry for the delay. I'm sorry for these things. Over time, they've said, wish this transition was done, X, Y, and Z. Like, they specified their shortcomings and their acknowledgments and them not being perfect, which has been extremely amazing to see, because you don't hear that from many people in leadership of, hey, I was wrong. And here's what we can do instead to make up for it or to do differently so you get the better end of the stick. And it's a learning curve for everybody, because my specific role is very unique and we're defining it as we're going forward. But they've also told me that, Ellie, you need to speak up too. And some things that when I withheld information thinking that I can deal with it and I can toughen it out. But they said, if you're not doing okay, you need to let us know, but you need to trust us as well. And that's where I realized that where my shortcoming is I don't know what to trust. I think that you're setting me up for failure and all that jazz. And that's going back to trauma responses and all that jazz, where I'm just withholding things because that's going to serve me better. But if I believe and trust that this environment's safe and they actually have good for me, and they wholeheartedly do, because they've done so many behind the scenes that I don't want to share and give away this job, but they have done so many things that is not the norm for their role, or is not the norm for someone that I'm in my role. No other people have received this type of favor, so to speak, for my role as well. So there's a lot of pieces that come into play. But overall, I'm realizing that I had a recent breakthrough of I'm operating in uncertainty and insecurities, and I'm running with that truth and thinking that everyone's coming to attack me. And that's the same mindset that I had when I lived up north, and where you and I had a falling out, because I was just thinking everyone was up against me. It was because I was living in this lie of thinking all these things that I've already shared. And I was just, the answer was to run away, get away from it. See what, you good there? Just run away from all these things and everything's going to get better, because if you run away from it, it won't show up again later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not serving to where I'm at now, where I'm post healing, post all these things, and I have an opportunity to see it at face value, recognize it, acknowledge it, but I'm going to decide to go this direction instead. Because
Mm-hmm.
as much as the idea of running away is so self-serving, it's not getting me to my end goal, which is to be a healthier version of myself and being willing to consider other people's truths and see if it's in alignment for me, but be open-minded and be willing to see other people, granted if they're healthy and all these things. But the answer is not to run away. In fact, for me, and it's only for me, don't, whoever's listening, take it and run with it and it not actually be good for you. But for me, sometimes I need to just emotionally and spiritually sit and just be and see what happens. Running away is not the answer. It's deciding to sit still and see how things are going to pan out and just take a step back and everything. I will operate better once I stop moving and stop trying to fix and do the things. Just stop. Do the bare minimum that I need to do. Take care of responsibilities and chores. But if I continue to do what I did 10 years ago and running away from everything, it's not going to do me any good. I don't think there's been any good in running away from things.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you think there's been good from running away from things.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, the everybody should be doing their best to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And and that'll manifest, the opportunities will manifest in a wide variety of options and circumstances and situations and seasons. So yeah, I think there's always good in, trying to level up and be healthier and be better, for sure. Don't disagree with that at all. And that's all good.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, that's all good.
I agree.
So, I mean, but that goes back to what I've been trying to say. Maybe I haven't been saying it well, but it's just the best thing that you can do is live in reality.
Yep.
And part of that is, realizing where you're at, where you are, and also identifying where other people are at as well.
And that's hard because then I've noticed recently that's ended relationships because some people are just not capable of being what you want or need, and how that naturally transforms into where it's at today.
Yeah.
Just letting them be them and you be you.
Well, and that's, yeah, I mean, that's and that's why like I said before, or at least I think I said before. If I haven't said it before, then this is the first time saying it now in this podcast, is the only person that you're responsible for is yourself.
Yep.
You're not responsible for anybody else's growth. You're not responsible for anybody else's emotions, their leadership style, their communication style, their path to healthiness. You are not responsible for that at all. What gets complicated is when you're caught in the middle between your healing journey and someone else's self-destructive journey. And that's where it gets really confusing, and that's where it can get problematic. But the only thing that you can do is just be the healthiest version of yourself, and then just be very honest and truthful of the circle of people that you surround yourself by, where they're at. Um, you know, and I mean, because I think a lot of times where, like, one of the things that I've been telling you recently is let go of your expectations that you have on other people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not just because you realize that you expect things from others, and you have this unspoken agreement that this person is gonna do X, Y, and Z. Just like how you said in this podcast, you were looking at, or whether you are or past tense were looking at these male leaders in your life, and you're going, I don't know what healthy male leadership looks like. That's okay.
Right.
Doesn't mean that you're supposed to learn it from them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's the case here, but I'm just saying it's like when you have expectations on people, especially as Christians, we don't like unfamiliar. We don't like the unknown. We like making the unknown known.
Yep.
We like going, the reason I'm going through this is because, like, I won't speak for you, but just for example, like, me as Ellie, I'm struggling in this environment. Yes, I have some things I need to work on myself because I recognize that they're showing up. But I must be here because I'm here to get healthy male leadership experience. So I'm going to sit in this. And even if it isn't good or isn't healthy, I'm going to overlook all that stuff because I'm making the decision now that God must want me to be here and learn X, Y, and Z. And I'm more of the opinion that unless God has specifically told you that, you have no business declaring that over yourself.
Nope. No.
Because just like blessings and curses, we are really good at, we want to make things fit. We want things to make sense, and when you release expectations on people, I'm not talking about like a spouse or like anything like that, but when you release expectations on people, you have the freedom that the way that they navigate the world doesn't have to influence where God is calling you to go and what God is calling you to learn. There might be some overlap for sure, and opportunities to test it and see if you learned your lessons and stuff, and that's all good, But like, I myself have worked in spaces that were run by Christians. They didn't have to it had nothing, it wasn't a great experience, and it wasn't because they had it out for me necessarily. It wasn't that they wanted to see me fail. It was just I wasn't willing to consent to some stuff, and they deemed that as me being not a team player. And that's okay. They're allowed to have that perspective. And just because they communicate it to me that I'm not a team player doesn't mean that it's right. Because something that I've learned, even in families, even in church, is that people do what's comfortable for them, not what's best for you. Ooh. If it's comfortable for somebody to not talk to you, not confront you, not deal with the elephant in the room, they're not going to do it. And they're not going to sit at night going, Zach and Ellie, I know they do really well when things are kind of laid out and it's talked about. So even though it's uncomfortable for me, I'm going to do what's best for them. Well, no, they don't do that. No one does that. It's a conscious practice, just like it's a conscious practice to be grateful and to have an attitude of gratitude and to be joyful. That's a choice, right? We don't organically do that. We have to make that action play out. It's kind of the same thing with other people. They can only go to the level of which they're able to, and you just have to realize, like, sometimes you outgrow people, sometimes you're on a different path, and sometimes people are in positions that they're gonna have to learn through trial and fire that maybe they shouldn't be in leadership. And you might be someone who gets burned in the process because they're on their own journey. And that's hard to navigate as well. So, I mean, I think for me, like in my experience, I know like I've had leaders who were abusive, and they said all the right things and they did all the right things, and they would yell at me and say horrible things, and they would come back later and apologize and say that they weren't going to do it again, and they would do it again. You know, and it's not like you become an angry, bitter person towards them. It's just recognizing, like, look, I can't trust what this person says.
Yeah.
I can't trust that they're not going to treat me that way. So if they're telling me something, or they're giving me feedback on something, or like, everything is suspect. And it's not because I'm trying to be a paranoid person. It's just like, look, if I want to walk in truth and I want to walk in healthiness, and someone else that I am unfortunately partnered with can't, we're going to be conflicting every day until either that person is gone or I'm gone, you know, until that relationship is split. And the only thing that you can do is just go like, look, this is what I stand for. This is the person that I am. I get a choice to either hide it because it offends somebody, or I'm going to walk in it because that's the person that God created me to be. And I'm not talking about being like a sassy, sarcastic person. I'm just talking about walking in your calling. You know, and the only thing that you can do is just say, look, whoever likes it is going to like it, and whoever doesn't is not going to like it. And there's going to be seasons where it works out really well, and there will be seasons where it doesn't work out really well. And just because someone might be going like, well, the way that you did that, or the way that you said that, it's like, sure, maybe I could have come across poorly, for sure. But just because sometimes just because you aggravate someone's demons doesn't mean that you're the one who needs to change, you know? And that's where I think we as Christians, or just as people, we get caught up because there's that little bit of truth nugget. It's like, yeah, I'm not perfect. Of course I can come off the wrong way. Of course there's things that I need, even me, I need to be better. I need to be more gracious, be more patient, whatever. There's some character things in me that I would like to get better. And someone can use that against me, and I can go, oh yeah, true. That person's not lying. That person's saying accurate things. But you and I also know what it's like when people who are abusive use the truth against us.
Yeah.
And what we want is, we want to live in a world where we hope that people don't do that to us. And we'll go, okay, because this person wasn't like our abuser, then even if there's some commonalities of behavior or what they're doing, we'll overlook it, or we'll give grace and say, well, it's not really that way. Maybe it's just a me problem, or maybe whatever. And that's where it's just really important to really dig in deep and go, look, let's just be honest with where things are at. I'm going to take accountability for what I need to work on. Other people, it's their job to take accountability for themselves. And if we keep running into this issue, then maybe it's not a me thing. Maybe there's an incompatibility thing here. And that's hard because, you know, we as people, we want things to work out. We want things to go well. We want things to, you know, we don't want to waste our time and say this was a bad investment.
Right.
So a lot of times we'll gaslight ourselves and say, no, it's not really bad. It's just me. I have that attitude problem, or I must have a lot of blind spots and I need to go back to therapy. Like, I've done that to myself. Or I was yoked with a friend who we actually used the same counselor. And my friend was telling me that there are all these things wrong with me. And the counselor was fine, but I really had to take a look at the truth and go, look, I don't think what's being told to me is true. I think I'm in a very toxic friendship, and I just want this friendship to work out so badly that I'm just willing to believe the lies being told to me, because I've made room for this person in my life. This person is filling a void. So I'm going to trust that person who doesn't even know me that well knows me well enough to point out that I have character flaws and I need to work on it. And because he's in therapy, he's fine. you know, and it's not to say that there weren't things about me that I needed to confront. I mean, I did. And in all actuality, there were things from my abuse that carried into that friendship that I had to really work through. But that was with me partnering with God about it.
Yeah.
And that was with me really trying to navigate that. And case in point, I'm not friends with that person anymore. Um, but and that person actually ended friendship with me because I wasn't godly enough. I didn't have the right theology. I didn't have the right thing. So he actually used God against me. A Christian used God against me for why we couldn't be in relationship with, in life. And I was the whole time thinking that I was the bad friend, that I had things to work on. And then when I kind of pulled back the curtain and asked God for the truth, yeah, of course there were things that I could have done better, but I was dealing with someone who was a liar. And in fact, that was a funny thing. The counselor told me, like, well, you both didn't do boundaries well. And I said, that's a lie. I did boundaries very well. I communicated. I was very careful with where I was willing to go, where I wasn't willing to go. He was the one who lied and said, no, walk over my boundaries that I'm not going to tell you. And then later on claimed that I violated his boundaries. So no, I mean, you kind of have to, when you get burned a lot, when you kind of go through the life lesson of that kind of, you just get better at owning your stuff and realizing that it's not your job to own anybody else's stuff. If someone's a liar and they're not walking in authenticity, it's not your job to teach them how to be authentic.
No.
Just because you cross paths with them does not mean that God put that person in your life so that you could be abused and teach them authenticity. And if he is, he'll be very clear about it. And it's not your job as a Christian to speak that over yourself and sign up for something thinking that you have God's blessing in it when that's not something God called you to do. And I think when you kind of just walk in that, or walk in some sort of variation of that, I think you just get better at being able to detect things. And even then, it doesn't have to be a death sentence. It's not like, this isn't going to work out, so I'm just going to walk away. You just have to navigate it differently. And yeah, it might hurt. It might sting a bit, but the truth is the best barometer of what is accurate, and that's a choice for both people, so I mean, I think of course, we have choices every day of how we're going to act and how we're going to be, and that stems from how we were taught, what we were exposed to, etc. And like I said, I think for me, going back kind of to how I described all this in the beginning, I was, what was apparent in terms of my deficiencies as a person when I started confronting my abuse was, it was all laid out. I didn't know what trust looked like. I didn't know what safety looked like. I didn't know what having fun looked like. I didn't know a lot of stuff, but it wasn't this slow burn. It was just, everything was just kind of laid out on the table, and I had to be confronted with the truth very, very, very early on. And I had a choice as to whether or not I accepted that as the truth, but it was very apparent that it was the truth. Yeah. And so for me, like I said, like the way that I've kind of gone through life with recognizing those things is I'm very aware of what those old deficits are, and I don't pretend that they're not there anymore. They're not, they don't affect me the same, and I operate differently, but there are core wounds that I have, and they may always be with me until I'm no longer here on this side of eternity. And I've made peace with that. That's not me cursing myself and saying I'm always going to struggle in that way, but it's just an acknowledgement that that's a core wound that has affected my identity, and it's affected, for the first 17 years of my life, how I navigated the world and how I saw myself and why I let people treat me that way. And so just because there's some healing there doesn't mean that it's just going to go away, you know? So for me, like my concept of issues, I don't keep like a chart of them, and I every day go through them and go, like, yep, I struggle with that, and yep, I struggle. Like, I don't go through life that way, but I do know where the scars are. Just like if you got into a car crash and you're healing from it, you know where the surgery wounds are. You don't have to look at them to know, you feel them, you know? Yeah. So it's just kind of like, I know where they're at, and I know what role they have played, and they don't get to claim the same amount of power that they've always had, you know? But as you kind of go through life, you know, I think it's good to just try to be, I think it's good to try to be as truthful and as real as you can and you're capable of. And humbleness is good too. Like, I'm not saying if someone comes up to you and says, hey, there's some issues that I see, you know, the first response shouldn't be, well, here's a mirror, look at yourself. You know, humbleness is good because, you know, we need people to show our blind spots, you know, and give us the opportunity to challenge that and change, you know. But I think there's also a really good discernment, though, is as you have chosen to be better and become healthier, is that you recognize the unhealthiness in other people, not as a shame or blame thing, but to recognize the dragon that you're working with.
Yep.
You know, and recognize that you might, you know, it's kind of like a gaming metaphor, but if the dragon is at 99 level and you're at level 20, you're going to die. Like, you're not going to survive that fight, you know? So sometimes it's even recognizing, like, look, I'm working with a dragon. There's no possible way that this is going to work out for me, because it's just not because I'm unhealthy or not because I'm not willing to do the work. It's just sometimes you're paired with bad people.
Yeah. And
the best thing that you can do is protect yourself. And it's not an opportunity to go, let me just hug you with the love of Jesus and all your problems are going to go away. It's just like, sometimes there's that barometer to go, look, I need to be very careful because I can already sense that this person has, like, I've walked into situations where I'm like, I cannot be around that person because I can tell that person is not being forthright. They're being dishonest. People are overlooking it, even though they know the truth. Other people are willing to excuse it. I'm not. Right. So do I want to be the bad guy and be the one in the room to point out, like, no, the king actually doesn't have clothes on. Y'all might be willing to lie about it, but I'm not, right? So sometimes I've been in those situations. Sometimes I just keep my mouth shut because it's like, look, I'm not going to win that fight, and it's not my role to play. My role is just to be here and do what God told me to do, you know? So, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's also that it's figuring out what your role is in it. And I think for me, one of the things that I've learned too in life is that I don't have the power to change people. I don't know how best to describe it, but like, there have been times where maybe it was just my incorrect method of trying to understand what I was supposed to do as a Christian, you know, but like, I kind of took on this belief that if people are to see Christ through me, then I need to be perfect and I need to do things very, very well. And I should just be willing to be abused so that people see Jesus through me. Mm. And that's such an extreme view where it's like, you know, maybe not. Maybe don't do that, because that's how you get taken advantage of, and that's how you get steamrolled. And if you haven't done the work to be able to sustain those injuries and get back on that horse, you're gonna never get back on that horse. you know? And so there's a lot of times there's some truths that we have to unlearn and some beliefs that we've spoken over ourselves where we kind of have to go, yeah, maybe that was a really bad interpretation of what I really should be doing. The healthier version of what I should be doing. So,
yeah.
I think in terms of triggers, in terms of that stuff, that's always going to show up. That's always going to happen. And the only thing that you can do is just
react to it.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing that you can do is just decide, this is how I'm going to respond. This is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm not willing to do. And you're not a bad Christian or a bad person if you're not willing to do things that you're being asked to do. I used to think that there was blessings in being told what to do, even if it was wrong, or even if it wasn't right, or even if it wasn't fair. You just do it. Just do it. Because that's what the authority above you is telling you to do. And it's like, yeah, that's a choice. And yeah, sometimes you have to. But I've gotten really good, or I shouldn't say that. I've gotten better at standing up for myself. Like, there was a time not long ago where I was getting in trouble for something that wasn't my fault, but, work didn't want to look at themselves and go, we're the problem.
Right.
Instead, we're going to tell Zach that he now has to do new things set apart from everyone else. He now has to do this new thing and that new thing and this new thing all the time, but no one else has to do it. And instead of me going like, okay, well, I guess because you're the boss and you know it's right because you're in leadership and God put you there. Instead of kind of going that route and just being like, okay, it was like, fine, I'll do it, but can you put it in writing?
Yeah.
Sure, I will do it, but I need you to put it in writing so that way it's documented. So that way both of us have a reference. Because if you're going to hold me to something that's not documented, oh, heck no. Oh, heck no. Because all it takes is someone to go like, well, that's not what I said. Or you misremembered me wrong. And it's like, no, I've gone through hell and high water. Like, I've gone through an abusive father who did that to me. I broke up with him. I'm not going to treat you better than him. I'm not going to take this just because you're an ant compared to a dragon. Like, to me, this is not acceptable. You're not going to hold me to unrealistic standards and not go about it the right way, And so some people can see that as aggressive. Some people can see that as confrontational. Some people can see that as me being mean or angry. And it's like, no, I'm protecting myself.
Right.
The only one that's looking out for me is me. I don't mean that to be like, it's only you guys. Like, you can't trust anybody. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, like I said, people do what's right where it's easier for them, not what's right for you. And when you kind of start to realize that people operate in weird ways, they're not going to put you first before themselves. They're just not. They're going to look out for themselves, and it sucks, especially when they are Christians. And so the best thing that you can do is just go like, look, if this is the battle that I'm going to have to fight, how am I going to fight it?
Right.
How can I go about this in a way that honors me, honors them, but I'm not dying on a sword, bleeding to death because that's what the authority above me wants me to do. It's like I'm more valuable than that, because God says so, not because I say so, because God says so. Right. And I think when you start to love yourself in that way and you no longer need that validation from other people, because like, trust me, I've gone into jobs where like you asked me, before in the recent past of like, are you excited about a new job? I'm like, yeah. And it's not because I'm not, but it's just like, I've gone into situations where I'm going into a new job going, it's not going to be like the last time. It's going to be better. And I know it's going to be better because I want it to be better. So I'm going to put this nice, happy magic carpet ride, frou-frou, sunshine rainbows. That's going to be perfect and wonderful. And it's not going to be anything like the past. And let me tell you, every time I've done that, it's just been another reiteration of the past. And so
sure,
I've just learned to go like, look, it's a It's a new season. I'm looking forward to it. There's stuff that I know I'm going to learn. There might be a dragon, there might not. I'm not going to know until I show up. So, you just kind of have to, I guess, the Bible says that we have to wear the armor of God. That means that there's a battle. We have to get better at realizing that we have to fight. Not like fight, and not that every relationship is a fight, but you have to wear the armor because you never know what's going to come at you,
Right.
And just because someone shot you with a bow and arrow doesn't mean the world is ending either. It just means like, ow, jerk, shot me with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
It's hard, so I think when you kind of get more into a routine like that, at least for me, I've just been able to kind of realize like, look, is it the end of the world? No. Is it as bad as the abuse was experienced from my father? No. But, where do I take responsibility for my actions? And where do I still show up and be as Christ-centered as possible, but also realize that, I have my own stuff to work on. Ellie has her own stuff to work on. Mom has her own stuff to work on. Everyone has their own stuff to work on. And sometimes people choose to not work on it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part too. So, but you're only responsible for yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have to kindly interrupt because we only have so much time left, and I want to appreciate your input in this. It's not easy, and I think you said it perfectly in regards to people do what's comfortable for them, not what's best for you. I think was one of the biggest things that you had mentioned that I think I'll keep in mind as well. But sorry to cut this off, Zach, but we do need to get going. Our recording time is, I'm literally watching the clock saying it's time to go. So, love you though.
Love you too.
And appreciate you in this episode and sharing what you can share. But bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.